listening to part 27 of our series, 7 Medicines, The Wise Woman Way, with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio. Hello, Susan. Welcome back to Time Monk Radio.
Thank you, Gemini. Really appreciate having the time to go into such great detail about these 7 different medicines. I find that many people are very, very confused when they decide that they want to do something that they think of as alternative, and they're not quite sure exactly what it is that they should do. And we have to admit it is terrifically confusing out there. Let's just, you and I, Gemini, see what kinds of alternative practices there are available to people. We've already talked about homeopathy and flower essences and gemstone elixirs, but we could certainly, I think that homeopaths definitely would be something that people would be exposed to. We've also mentioned massage therapy and chiropractic. Can you think of any others?
Perhaps energy medicine, like Reiki practitioners, that type of thing.
Like Reiki practitioners, there you go. That's an excellent one. Cranial sacral work.
Yes. And then I know practitioners that do like mind-body talk. I forget what exactly it's called. Body speak or something of that nature.
Body speak. Great. Love it, right? And a variety of neuro-emotional things as well. There's also hydrotherapy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And hydro, of course, means therapy with water. And that uses not just water, but water of different temperatures. So I think we have not made a huge list here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different alternative practices. And listeners, if we have left you out, let us know and say, hey, how about this? Isn't this important enough to include? And we will probably say, sure. But what we're looking at here is body speak, Reiki, and homeopathy, which are basically mind medicine. In other words, if we wanted to put these to some kind of strict scientific tests and say, we're going to show you scientifically how this works, we were going to have to admit that we can't. That, in fact, these things fail pretty miserably, most scientific tests. And that I even mentioned that the man who brought acupuncture to the West has stopped using needles, because he does not personally believe that the acupuncture itself really works. And so I'm going to add acupuncture here too, which we did not have, acupuncture. And the acupuncture, we're not going to really be able to decide, is it mind medicine or is it not? There are people who argue very, very fiercely on both sides of that. And so we are left with massage, chiropractic, cranial sacral, hydrotherapy, and Susan, did you leave out herbal medicine? Let's add herbalism as well here. And these are direct contact, interaction with the physical form. And I've talked about this before, but I want to talk about it just briefly again. The first medicine, serenity medicine, we are not making contact. We are not even making physical contact with ourselves. Right? Story medicine, there is contact, but it's contact of images and words. All right, so we are still not making direct contact. At the third medicine, mind medicine, there might be brief, light physical contact. So when you mentioned Reiki, do you do Reiki yourself, Gemini?
I do.
And would you grab somebody and shake them when you were doing a Reiki session?
No, not typically, no.
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, how much contact would you have?
I have very little contact. It depends on their own comfort level.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. And in mind medicine, there is usually very little contact, or if there is contact, the contact is light and brief. So we can see that we're moving more and more into the body. By the time we get to lifestyle medicine, we're actually not consuming placebos. We're consuming things that actually have physiological effects, direct physiological effects. We're taking in food. We're taking in beverages. We are actually moving our bodies. We are now in direct contact with the body. When we move to the fifth medicine, then that contact becomes deeper, longer, and with more oomph behind it. So again, we could look at acupuncture and we could say, well, why don't you put acupuncture in like the last medicine, Susan, because there's actually a needle going through the skin. If we're looking at contact with the body, then certainly the last and the most dangerous contact of any kind with the body is to insert a needle through the skin, to cut open the skin. The seventh medicine, high-tech medicine, is also break and enter. And wouldn't acupuncture be that? So within acupuncture, it can be difficult to say, is it energy medicine? Is it alternative medicine? Is it high-tech in terms of break and enter? I feel quite comfortable including acupuncture in with alternative medicine, partly because the way I'm framing this, which is through the eyes of a person who said, whatever is going on here, modern medicine is not giving me enough. Modern medicine is not giving me what I need. I am going to seek alternative medicine. And let me also remind us, I talked last week about moving forward through the medicines from 1 to 2, adding on 1 at 1 globally. But I want to remind us that we also go back through the medicines. So if someone's view has been that medicine is simply high-tech medicine, invasive medicine, and pharmaceutical medicine, and they go back from the 7th medicine, the 6th medicine, to the 5th medicine, to alternative medicine, as far as I'm concerned, that's an improvement. As far as I'm concerned, they're already doing something good for themselves because they are doing something that is less dangerous and less likely to harm. What we truly want is to get them over the Great Divide. We want to get them past the mid-Atlantic chasm and into those first 4 medicines: lifestyle medicine, mind medicine, story medicine, and serenity medicine. But I am happy to get people who want to be off drugs and into some alternative form of medicine. Not a difficulty. Can alternative medicine be dangerous? It can. That's why it's in the 5th river. How dangerous? Again, a point of great contention. In my book, Breast Cancer, ? Breast Health, ! The Wise Woman Way, I suggest that breast self-exam is not exactly what is called for. And I suggest instead breast self-massage. Now, I thought that I was on pretty safe ground here, and I was shocked when MDs who read the chapter pre-publication in manuscript form put little sticky notes going, this is a very dangerous thing to tell women to do. A woman can massage her breast with so much force that she could break open a cancer and spread it around in her breast. And you can see that although I acknowledge that they said those things, I did not let those things dissuade me from suggesting that women do breast self-massage. Partly because I've never met a woman who would massage her breast so hard that she would actually break open a cancer. But mostly because the written instructions for the operator of the mammography machine are to put the breast between the plates and to tighten the plates down on the breast until the woman exclaims with discomfort. So I must tell you that it is difficult for me to imagine a woman who is going to massage her breast to the point of discomfort, and yet we are encouraged to have a mammogram, which is going to put pressure on the breast to the point of discomfort. And where do these MDs get the idea that a cancer could break and spread from results from what has happened under certain very rare and very odd circumstances with mammograms? Not. Because I asked them, you ever known a woman who actually massaged? No. But when you do this, I'm like, well, then let's tell the women not to get mammograms. Oh, no, you can't do that. As a matter of fact, I just read an article from an MD who was just furious. And the MD is a cancer specialist and said, what I know is the earlier we get to work on the cancer, the better the prognosis, right? If I can get that cancer before it's even really cancer, then I can really cure that person is actually what they're wanting us to hear. And they're even saying stage 0 cancer, which means it's not cancer at all. And so I am alarmed. This article went on at the current recommendation that a woman not do breast self-exams and not have a mammogram until she's 45. And I wonder if the MD has actually read the huge reams of studies that have caused all the major medical people to understand that mammograms are not preventative and they don't find cancer that soon. That is high-tech medicine. Breast self-massage is the fifth river. It's alternative medicine, and alternative medicine can be dangerous, but it will never be as dangerous as high-tech medicine is. What do all of these alternative medicines have in common? So we're talking about massage therapy, chiropractic therapy, cranial sacral work, hydrotherapy, acupuncture, and herbalism. What they have in common is that they stimulate and sedate. We talked about hydrotherapy, which is not just putting somebody in water, but it's actually using water that is different temperatures. The water can be very hot. The water can be very cold. The water comes in various degrees of force. I think it's very clear to see that there is stimulus and sedation. Most of us know that sitting in a hot bathtub is going to relax us. It is going to be sedating. So that someone said to me, well, would you say that taking a bath then is the fifth medicine? And I would say, yes, indeed. I would put taking a bath in the fifth medicine. It is sedative. And we'll see as I continue to talk about this why it's a problem at all that we need to think about stimulus and sedation, and why it is the actions that go with the fifth river and why these actions increase the risk of bad effects and side effects. We would then ask ourselves, is this true in acupuncture? Are we stimulating and sedating? And again, the answer is a very clear yes, certainly. That is, in fact, what is said about acupuncture is I am going to stimulate the energy through this meridian. I'm going to sedate the energy in this meridian. There are a great many ways to talk about stimulating and sedating, or states of stimulus or sedation. We can talk about full and empty in Chinese medicine. We can talk about hot and cold. We can talk about rapid and slow. So there's a great many ways that we have of expressing this idea of stimulating and sedating. But it's very clear that acupuncture is doing that, is stimulating and sedating. Remember that acupuncture comes from older techniques, moxibustion and cupping. And moxibustion is, in fact, the tonification technique that goes with the acupuncture points and meridians. So it is, to my mind, a better choice if we're coming at it from the beginning of the medicines to do moxibustion before we try acupuncture. But if we're coming from the high-tech medicine and the pharmaceutical medicine, then acupuncture is the best step as we're stepping back. And then moving back from that, we would move back to moxibustion or possibly to cupping. And have you ever experienced cupping, Gemini?
I haven't. I've had the moxibustion, but I don't believe I've had the cupping.
The cupping is an old technique, and it's certainly not restricted to China. It's actually used all over the world. And in simplest form, a cup is heated over a candle flame and then is immediately put onto a flat area of the body. Because the air has been expelled from the cup by the candle flame, and the cup is slightly hotter than the body, there is a suction that occurs. And especially if you use, like, not a teacup, but say an egg cup, right? Think of something the size of an egg cup. And hold that over a candle flame till it gets warm, and then put that on that flat area of the body. And what happens, and this is cupping, is that the blood flow, of course, is tremendously pulled to that area because it's like a suction there. And this is certainly stimulus.
Yeah, I've not had that done. No.
Yeah. It's an interesting technique. It's not very much in favor in modern day America, but in many other places in the world, it is still, quite importantly done, and especially to help people to deal with kind of, let's say, work-related, what we would nowadays call repetitive stress injuries, where we really need to get blood flow back to an area that somehow has been too stressed. Wide variety of uses of it. But we see that acupuncture is that stimulating, sedating part of it. It is the fiercer thing from that tradition. The moxibustion, the most tonifying, the cupping, a little stronger, and then the most recent addition there, the acupuncture. And again, as I said, one could even say, wait a second, you're putting a needle into the body. However, those needles are hair fine. In the original situation, those were extremely fine needles which were sterilized between uses, not to say that they did not occasionally have some bad effect. We're in the fifth river. We're in the fifth medicine. Is there sometimes going to be, by accident, some things that happen? Nowadays, disposable needles are used. I personally have my own set of acupuncture needles because I've been involved with people involved with acupuncture since the very first school, the Boston School of Acupuncture, opened in the United States. And so I was presented with my own set of needles, which were then sterilized and used only for me when I received acupuncture treatment, or more to the point, when I offered myself up as a guinea pig for people studying acupuncture. But nowadays, all acupuncture needles used in North America are disposable, and they don't even use your needle in you ever again, to cut down on that risk. So we've certainly seen that acupuncture is stimulate, sedate, and hydrotherapy is stimulate, sedate. I think it's pretty clear also that massage therapy is stimulating and sedating as well. It is a wonderfully passive way to receive loving care. And insofar as that massage is giving us loving care, it is certainly nourishing. Life, of course, does not hew to the black and white lines of any kind of system. And I don't want to in any way ignore or not acknowledge that there is that loving and supportive and nourishing aspect to massage. And yet what is being done is a kind of physical therapy. And physical therapy has as its primary goal to sedate places where there is tension and pain and to stimulate places where there is not enough blood flow, where there is not enough energy getting through there. Again, I'm not saying that stimulus and sedation are bad. I'm saying they're riskier than nourishing. And this is what all of these alternative medicines have in common. Herbalism perhaps is not as obvious to people that what most herbalists are using is stimulating herbs and or sedative herbs. And so next week, in order to really see how this stimulating, sedating plays out and the variety of different ways that we can be in it, I'm going to take us right into some herbal medicine and some stimulating and sedating as it's used in practice, as we would actually encounter it. But this week, what I want to say is that most herbalists and most herbs that are being used are stimulant or sedative herbs. These are the herbs that make it big time. Walk into a drugstore and say, what herbs do you have for sale? You're going to probably find valerian, a sedative, and possibly ginseng, a stimulant. These are the kinds of things that we are interested in from our herbs and herbal medicines. As I said a couple of weeks ago, I'm the odd herbalist out in my focus on nourishing herbs. All other herbalists, although certainly some of them are changing, but all of us have been trained to see the sedative and stimulant herbs as the powerful ones, the ones that really do the job, and not to acknowledge the other medicines. Chiropractic, and again, I want to acknowledge that there are a great many different forms of chiropractic. And I don't want the chiropractors to feel that I am lumping them all in together. There is a network chiropractic, for instance, and I think that we would be quite justified in putting network chiropractic in mind medicine or in lifestyle medicine, partly because there is very little physical contact with network chiropractic. When I was understanding chiropractic, working with chiropractics, receiving chiropractic treatment so that I could really understand this technique. I also met a chiropractor who, again, rather than actually adjusting people, had people lay on wedges of various sizes and shapes so that the body could adjust itself. Again, this is not the Fifth River here. The kind of very rare, very scary horror stories that we hear, a chiropractor broke somebody's neck, these tend to be people who are called the hole-in-one chiropractors, and that's all they do is they adjust those neck vertebrae. And yes, it can cause consequences. Many other classical chiropractors do adjustments in which they come down with some force on the spine and the muscles around the spine. And so here we have very clearly stimulus. Alternative medicine functions through stimulating and sedating. Stimulating and sedating are different than nourishing and tonifying. tonification and stimulation seem to be very, very close. If we say that tonification builds the functioning of the organ or the organism, how do we distinguish it from stimulation, which increases the functioning of the organ or the organism? Now, there's not a lot of difference between build and increase. This is perhaps a very subtle difference that I'm pulling out here. And yet, I think that it's very clear to all of us what that difference is. So that if I see to it that my musculature is taken care of by paying attention to how I sit, paying attention to how I stand, paying attention to how I move, engaging in Qigong, Tai Chi, and yoga, then the massage is not what I am going to depend on to make my muscles okay. It's going to be that extra added bonus that I get for those inevitable places that just get locked down, because it is, after all, modern life. But primarily, what we are looking at in all of these things is that stimulus, which is different than tonification. Tonification comes through my own effort. Stimulus usually comes through someone else's effort. But perhaps the most telling aspect here is that if I am tonified and I miss my tonifying activity for a short period of time, I will not lose tone. But if I stimulate and then I do not have my stimulating substance or activity for a short period of time, I will notice it. I usually talk about stimulation and sedation with a visual. It's going to be a little difficult to impart over the radio, but I'm going to do my best. I would like you to take your hands and hold them in front of you. And I want you to hold your dominant hand up at a level that would indicate to you, this is the most energy I can tolerate. Any more energy than this, and I am just going to freak out and run screaming. And then I'd like you to hold your other hand with your palms facing at a lower level, and I want you to let this represent, this is the least energy that I can have and stay awake. Any less energy than this, I'm sound asleep. And so we call the range between your two hands your functional range. When you tonify, you expand your functional range. Your bottom hand gets lower. You can stay awake with less energy available to you, and your top hand gets higher. You don't freak out when you're in the presence of a lot of energy. When we stimulate, however, rather than moving the top hand up and the bottom hand down, thus expanding our range, we move both hands up. And when we sedate, we move both hands down. So let's say that we have stimulated ourselves with a couple of cups of coffee. The bottom hand moves up and the top hand moves up. We are stimulated. As that stimulus wears off, the top hand begins to come down, but the bottom hand stays where it is. If we go the other way, if we are sedating, then the top hand and the bottom hand go down. As it wears off, the bottom hand comes up, but the top hand stays down. Repeat with either sedation or stimulation, and we will eventually come to the point where our hands meet. At this point, we are addicted in some form to that stimulus or to that sedative, because a great many stimulants and sedatives are indeed quite addictive. When we use lifestyle medicine, the fourth medicine, tonification stays with us. When we use stimulate, sedate, when we use the fifth medicine, alternative medicine, then what we get does not necessarily stay with us. And that's it for this week. I'll be back with you next week with lots more green blessings. Thank you, Gemini.
Thank you, Susan. This concludes part 27 of our series, The 7 Medicines, The Wise Woman Way, with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio.